Your world isn't actually ending, but your brain is lying to you and saying it is. The secret to surviving a total collapse isn't fixing the external chaos, it's severing the link between the disaster outside and the panic inside. I'm going to show you how to find the silence. Most people think composure is about being strong, but it's actually about knowing what to let break. When everything falls apart, your instinct to fix the unfixable is your greatest enemy. True power is found in the singular, immediate choice you make in the breath between a crisis and your response. Imagine the moment internal panic perfectly mirrors the external chaos surrounding you. That is the exact point where most people lose themselves. To remain calm when your entire world is falling apart, you must strip away the noise and master the steady breath. This is how you endure the unendurable. There's a moment. You might recognize it when it happens, or you might not recognize it until much later. It's the moment when your world shifts. When something you thought was permanent suddenly isn't. When the ground beneath you moves and you realize nothing is as stable as you believed. Maybe it's a phone call. Maybe it's an email. Maybe it's something you see on a screen. Maybe it's something you don't see coming at all. And in that moment, everything you've built your identity around, your career, your relationship, your security, your sense of control, suddenly feels like it's slipping away. Your heart rate elevates, your breathing becomes shallow, your thoughts scatter in 100 different directions. The world seems to be ending. And here's what most people do in that moment. They panic, they react, they spiral. They make decisions from a place of fear instead of clarity. They let the chaos outside become the chaos inside. They mistake the emergency for certainty. They believe that because things feel catastrophic, they must be catastrophic. But what if there's another way? What if the moment your world is falling apart is actually the moment you have the most power? Not power to control what's happening, but power over how you respond to it. In the next 30 minutes, I'm going to show you how to remain calm when your entire world is collapsing. Not through denial or dissociation, but through understanding. Through ancient wisdom that's been tested in the harshest circumstances human beings face. Because the Stoics understood something that most people learn too late. Composure in crisis isn't a luxury. It's a superpower, and it's something you can develop starting right now. Let's go. I want to walk you through what's actually happening in your body and mind when you feel like your world is ending. Because if you understand the mechanism, you can interrupt it. When you receive news of something catastrophic, a job loss, a relationship ending, a health crisis, a financial disaster, something specific happens in your nervous system, your amygdala activates. That's your brain's threat detection center. It's designed to keep you alive. When it perceives danger, it doesn't consult your rational mind. It immediately triggers your fight or flight response. Your cortisol and adrenaline spike. Your heart rate increases. Your breathing becomes shallow. Your pupils dilate. Your body is flooded with chemicals designed to help you survive immediate physical danger. This is useful if you're facing a predator. It's not useful if you're facing a job loss or a relationship ending. But your primitive brain doesn't distinguish between physical danger and existential threat. To your nervous system, they're the same. So what happens is this. The external event, the crisis, triggers an internal cascade. And very quickly, you're not responding to the actual event anymore. You're responding to your own emotional echo of the event. You're responding to your fear, not to the reality. And here's where it gets dangerous. In 2026, there's an additional layer. You're not just receiving information about the crisis. You're receiving it through a digital information loop designed to maximize emotional impact. You're seeing it from multiple angles, hearing every possible interpretation, being exposed to worst-case scenarios, watching other people panic about it. So you're not just dealing with the original crisis. You're dealing with a constant amplification of the crisis, a manufactured urgency, a false sense that the situation is more dire and more immediate than it actually is. Your brain interprets this constant input as, this situation is getting worse. This situation is getting worse. This situation is getting worse. So the panic doesn't subside. It accumulates. It intensifies. And something remarkable happens. The feeling of the world ending becomes more real than the actual world. Let me say that again. The feeling becomes more real than the fact. You can intellectually know that you have options, that the situation is manageable, that this isn't actually a life or death scenario. But you're feeling like it is, and the feeling overwhelms the fact. This is where most people get stuck. They're fighting their own emotional response. They're trying to convince themselves that things aren't as bad as they feel, and that doesn't work, because feelings are real. Your panic is real. Your fear is real. But, and this is crucial, the panic is not accurate information about the situation. It's information about your nervous system's interpretation of the situation. The Stoics understood this distinction perfectly. They understood that your emotional response to an event is not the event itself. It's your judgment about the event. Epictetus taught, people are not disturbed by things, but by the views they take of them. Your panic isn't disturbing you because the world is ending. Your panic is disturbing you because you've accepted a particular interpretation of the world. And interpretations can be changed. Here's something most people don't realize exists. There's a gap between the event and your response to it. It's tiny. It's measured in microseconds. But it's there. And in that gap lies your freedom. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, wrote about this. He said, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. That space is incredibly small, but it's real, and it's where everything changes. Let me illustrate this. Someone tells you that you've been fired. That's the stimulus, the event. Immediately, your nervous system reacts. Your heart rate increases. You feel fear. Your mind immediately jumps to, I'm ruined. I won't be able to pay bills. My life is over. That cascade happens almost instantaneously. It feels like it's automatic. It feels like you have no choice. But there's a gap. In that gap, between receiving the information and believing the story your mind is telling about the information, you actually have agency. The event is the event. You were fired. That's a fact. The event already happened. You can't change it. But your response to that event, that's still undetermined. That's still yours to choose. Most people never access that gap because it's so small and because they're flooded with adrenaline and cortisol and fear. But you can train yourself to access it. Here's how. The first step is to create what I call the divorce from outcomes. This means mentally separating yourself from the things that are currently beyond your direct control. Let's use the job loss example. The event. You've been fired. That's already happened. Beyond your control. How the company explained it. Other people's opinions about you. Whether you could have done something differently. It's in the past now. Your industry's response. Within your control. Your response to the loss. How you think about your skills and value. What action you take next. Your attitude as you move forward. Whether this becomes a catastrophe or a catalyst. Most people waste enormous amounts of energy trying to control the things that are already determined. Trying to change people's minds about them. Trying to undo what's already done. That's the energy leak. That's what turns a crisis into a collapse. The Stoic move is to immediately abandon the futile, to accept that certain things are lost or destroyed or gone, and to redirect all your energy toward the things that are actually within your control. Here's a practice that works. When you're in crisis, immediately write down 2 lists. What I can directly influence in this situation. This might include my actions over the next week, my attitude, who I reach out to, what skills I have, what decisions I make today, what I absolutely cannot control. This might include what already happened, other people's reactions, the industry's response, the past. And then, this is crucial, you mentally release the second list. You stop spending mental energy on it. This isn't resignation. This isn't giving up. This is strategic focus. Because every calorie of mental energy you spend trying to control the uncontrollable is a calorie you're not spending on what you can actually influence. The second step is what I call the ego reset. What this means, stop personalizing what may not be personal. When something catastrophic happens, your ego immediately interprets it as a reflection of you. A job loss means you're not competent. A relationship ending means you're not lovable. A financial crisis means you're a failure. But that's almost never the truth. Most catastrophes are structural failures or systemic issues or random chance, or all 3. They rarely have much to do with your inherent worth or capability. The Stoics called this amor fati, love of fate. Not because the event is good, but because accepting that events happen according to factors beyond your control is the beginning of freedom. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The ego wants to believe that everything that happens to you is about you, that you could have prevented it, that you deserve it or don't deserve it. But the truth is simpler. Things happen. Some things are your responsibility. Many things are not. When you reset your ego and stop personalizing what isn't personal, the panic begins to subside, because you realize this isn't about whether I'm good or bad. This is just what happened, and now I get to decide how to respond. Here's a hard truth that most people resist. Some things, once broken, cannot be repaired. And the moment you accept that is the moment you actually gain power. Most people waste enormous amounts of emotional energy trying to fix the unfixable. They're holding on to a version of reality that no longer exists. They're trying to restore what's already been destroyed. They're grieving the old world while pretending it might come back. It won't. The Stoics understood that there's a specific moment when you need to make a crucial decision. Is this a problem I can solve, or is this a new reality I need to accept? These are completely different categories, and conflating them is catastrophic. A problem you can solve requires effort, strategy, problem solving. A new reality you need to accept requires surrender, adaptation, and a shift of focus. Let me give you an example. Your house burns down in a fire. That's a catastrophe. Now, is the problem, how do I prevent the fire? The fire already happened. That's not a solvable problem. That's a new reality. Your house is gone. That's the fact. The actual problem you can solve is, what do I do now? Where do I stay? What do I salvage? How do I move forward? Most people get stuck in the first question. Why did this happen? How could I have prevented it? What could I have done differently? All of those questions are focused on the unfixable past. The Stoic reframes immediately. The house is gone. That's the new reality. Now, what's my next action? Here's the practice. When you're in crisis, audit the situation ruthlessly. Ask yourself, what in this situation is genuinely permanent loss? Your house burned down. That's permanent. Your possessions are gone. That's permanent. But are your relationships? No. In fact, crisis often reveals which relationships are real. Is your health permanently affected? Depends on the crisis, but often you adapt. Is your ability to earn money? Almost never permanently. Is your capacity to think, to plan, to act? Never. That's always available to you. Separate the genuine permanent losses from the structural shifts that feel catastrophic but are actually manageable. Then, and this is the key move, stop the energy leak. The energy leak is the emotional attachment to how things used to be. It's the if-only thoughts. It's the persistent belief that if you just think about it hard enough, you can restore the old reality. You can't. And the sooner you stop trying, the sooner your energy becomes available for the only thing that matters, the new reality. The Stoic phrase is amor fati, love of fate. Accept what is, not because it's good, but because it is. Here's what happens when you make this shift. Your nervous system begins to calm down because you're no longer fighting against reality. You're no longer expending energy on the impossible. You're no longer cycling between hope that the old reality will return and despair that it won't. You're simply observing, this is what happened, this is what is. Now, what's the wise move? And in that acceptance, clarity emerges. The crisis doesn't become easy, but it becomes manageable. It becomes something you can actually work with instead of something that's consuming all your mental energy just to resist it. Here's what happens when your world is falling apart. Your mind tries to process everything at once, the entire future, all the implications, every worst-case scenario, every possible outcome, the cascade of consequences, the ripple effects. And your mind can't actually process all of that. So it short-circuits, it panics, it defaults to survival mode. But here's the Stoic move that changes everything. You shrink the world. Deliberately, strategically. You reduce the scope of reality to something your mind can actually process. The Stoics called this premeditatio malorum, negative visualization. But more importantly, they practiced what I call radical present moment focus. When the scale of the disaster feels overwhelming, you don't try to solve the entire disaster. You focus on the next 60 seconds. That's it, just the next minute. What do you need to do in the next 60 seconds that maintains your dignity and moves you slightly forward? Maybe it's taking 3 deep breaths. Maybe it's making a phone call. Maybe it's writing 1 email. Maybe it's standing up and moving your body. Maybe it's sitting down and being still. The specific action doesn't matter. What matters is, it's something you can control. It's something that matters. It's something that takes your mind out of the catastrophic spiral and into the present moment. When you're in acute crisis, the most powerful tool is rhythmic breathing. Not meditation, not spirituality, not positive thinking. Just breathing. Here's why. Your nervous system is flooded with adrenaline and cortisol. Your fight or flight response is activated. Your mind is racing. Your body is in emergency mode. Rhythmic breathing directly communicates to your nervous system. This is not an emergency. We are safe. It activates your parasympathetic nervous system. It lowers your heart rate. It calms your mind. Simple breathing. In for a count of 4. Hold for a count of 4. Out for a count of 4. Hold for a count of 4. Do this for 2 minutes. Your nervous system will begin to regulate. This isn't a hack. This is neuroscience. From this grounded state, after you've breathed and regulated your nervous system, you can access the next layer, the one non-negotiable action. This is an action you commit to regardless of the outcome, regardless of whether it fixes anything, regardless of circumstances. You do it because it maintains your dignity, because it's aligned with your values, because it's something you can control. Maybe it's, I will reach out to one person and ask for support. Maybe it's, I will spend 30 minutes researching options for moving forward. Maybe it's, I will go for a walk and get out of my own head. Maybe it's, I will sit down and acknowledge this is real and I can handle it. The action matters less than the commitment, because what you're doing is, you're claiming agency. You're saying, I may not control what happened, but I control what happens next. And in that claim, your nervous system begins to calm down. Your mind begins to clear. Your perspective begins to shift. You move from my world is ending to my world has shifted, and I'm going to respond wisely. There's something that happens after you've been through a real crisis. If you've made it through, if you've survived, if you've adapted, if you've kept moving, there's a moment when you realize something. You're still here. The world didn't end. You didn't end. The crisis happened, and you're still standing, and something shifts. You realize that composure, that calm, that steadiness isn't something you're born with or without. It's something you choose. It's something you build through practice. It's something that becomes available to you the moment you stop waiting for external circumstances to feel safe and instead choose to feel safe within yourself. The Stoics called this ataraxia, tranquility. But it's not the absence of difficulty. It's the presence of steadiness even within difficulty. Marcus Aurelius faced plague, war, political intrigue, personal loss, but he wrote in his private journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He wasn't denying the reality of the crises. He was acknowledging that his steadiness came from within, not from the absence of challenge. Here's what I want you to understand. When everything external is stripped away, your status, your possessions, your relationships, your identity, there's something that remains. There's a core of you that is untouched by circumstances. It's the awareness, the ability to observe, the capacity to choose your response. That's what the Stoics were pointing to. That's the final silence. The place where no matter what's happening around you, you have access to calm because you've located yourself in something deeper than circumstances. Building this requires practice. It requires creating what I call a personal blueprint for volatility. This is essentially your playbook for when things fall apart. It includes your non-negotiable actions. What will you do regardless of circumstances? Maybe it's, I will reach out to my support network. I will move my body. I will acknowledge my fear and act anyway. Your grounding practices. What brings you back to the present moment when your mind is spiraling? Breathing, walking, cold water, physical movement. These are your circuit breakers, your values reaffirmation. When crisis hits, what matters most? Usually it's not what we thought mattered before the crisis. It's our loved ones, our integrity, our ability to respond with wisdom instead of panic. Your perspective reset. What helps you see the crisis as temporary rather than permanent? Maybe it's remembering previous crises you've survived. Maybe it's perspective that this is a structural shift, not a personal failure. Maybe it's remembering that human beings are remarkably resilient. The people who remain calm in crisis aren't people who haven't been hurt. They're people who have been hurt and have learned something from it. They've built a framework. They've practiced. They've located a steadiness within themselves that's independent of external circumstances. And that's available to you right now. Not because your circumstances are about to become easy, but because you can begin today to practice accessing the part of you that remains steady regardless of circumstances. That's the final silence. That's the composure that's not about the absence of fear. It's about the presence of wisdom. Let me be very clear about something. If your entire world is falling apart right now, this isn't a message to be positive or think your way out of it. Your crisis is real. Your pain is real. Your fear is real. What I'm offering is not denial of that. What I'm offering is the understanding that you don't have to be controlled by it. You have access to a different way of being in the midst of crisis. Not a way that eliminates the crisis, but a way that allows you to navigate it with integrity and clarity instead of panic and fragmentation. The Stoics taught that virtue is the highest good. And virtue, excellence of character, is something that becomes most visible during hardship. It's easy to be calm when everything's going well. It's easy to be dignified when life is comfortable. The real test is, can you remain calm when the world is falling apart? Can you maintain your integrity when circumstances are pushing you to panic? Can you stay connected to your values when everything seems to be crumbling? That's not weakness. That's not spiritual bypassing. That's actual strength. So here's what I'm asking you to do. If you're in crisis right now, take 3 deep breaths. Right now. Don't wait. In for 4. Hold for 4. Out for 4. Hold for 4. Do this for 2 minutes. Just regulate your nervous system. Then identify one non-negotiable action you can take today that maintains your dignity and moves you forward, even if it's small. And then take it. Because the moment you claim agency, the moment you move from "this is happening to me" to "this has happened, and here's how I respond," everything begins to shift. Your panic will still be there. Your fear might still be there. But you'll be bigger than it. You'll be connected to something steadier than the panic. That's where real composure lives. Not in the absence of crisis, but in the presence of choice. Your entire world might be falling apart. That's real. But so is your capacity to remain steady. So is your ability to respond with wisdom. So is your access to the part of you that no external event can touch. That's available to you right now. In this moment. In the next 60 seconds. In the breath you're about to take. The world can fall apart around you, and you can still be whole within yourself. That's the teaching. That's the path. That's what the Stoics knew. And now, it's yours to practice.